Tanya Day is a multidimensional professional with a history of community service. Tanya's diverse background includes serving our community as several roles in both public and non-for-profit sectors. She currently serves as the Clinton County Recorder, a position to which she was elected in 2020. In January of this year, she was appointed to the Ohio Reporters Association Legislative Committee, working to evaluate legislative relevant to the organization and constituents throughout the state. Prior to serving our community as county recorder, Tanya was a paralegal for Montgomery, Rennie and Johnson in Cincinnati, as well as freelance work in Dayton area from 2005 to 2021. She was owner of the local bed and breakfast Daydreams located near Wilmington College. Tanya's not-for-profit service includes serving as educational manager for the Junior Achievement of Dayton, Ohio, a role in which she has managed contract compliance, program quality control, marketing, and student recognition for 13 counties. Her service to our community also includes as the executive director of the Murphy Theater from 2011 to 2014, where she was responsible for expanding program facility and event management in all operations areas. She also served on the Wilmington City School PTO as president and treasurer for many years. Equipping with the role must prepare her for the political arena. A Clinton County native, Tanya remains an active volunteer in our community, investing in her time in supporting Main Street Wilmington, local community theater, Hope House, and athletics in support of her children. Tanya has a BA from the University of Moreland State University, is a graduate of Manchester High School. She's the mom of 4 children, ages 23, 22, 20, and 15. Tanya and her 4 children will be hosting an exchange student from Sweden from July to June of 2025. In her spare time, she enjoys keeping up with her children. And I got a feeling her children have a hard time keeping up with her.
Oh, yeah.
Give you time. Get back too close to that mic. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Try to keep the 6 inches away.
Okay. You just hold it. Is it best to hold it? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the recorder's office and some things that we have going on there, and then we're just going to open it up and you can ask questions about what my kids are doing now. I know many of you know my daughter, Jordan Snar. She worked here at Cape May for several years. So we'll just kind of have an open question and answer after I get a little bit of information about the office. One thing that we have going on, and this is something that if you are a property owner or your children are property owners and anyone you care about and love, that you can share out into the community. And it's Property Fraud Alert. I've had it in the newspaper a couple times, and it is something that is kind of running rampant throughout the United States, and it has finally hit Ohio, including Clinton County. We have so the way that people are doing this, mostly people from outside the country, are calling realtors. This was the scam that happened actually in Clinton County. A gentleman was calling realtors posing as a family member, and they're typically attacking people where their tax bill goes outside the state. So it makes sense that they would be calling and they could, drop into the realtor's office. So unfortunately, these people are very thoughtful, very bright people. Unfortunately, they're not using it to the good. So they're calling a realtor and saying, we want to put the farm up for sale. So this may be a farm that is owned by several people. The farm that they attacked in Clinton County was one of our Century farms, actually. It was owned by 4 siblings and their respective trusts. The sister who was receiving the tax bill lived in Arizona. So this guy calls a local realtor. Actually, he tried 4 realtors, 3 of them kind of thought something was fishy. the fourth one, they encouraged, it happened. So the realtor lists the house, and they've done this all via email and one phone call. So once the phone call was made, they send these emails, okay, we'll do the signatures via email. It all happened, they're scanning documents in, trading back and forth. The whole contract for the sale of this very large century farm in Clinton County was put for sale. Thankfully, the brother lives in the home. So the realtor comes out and puts the sign in the yard, and the brother says, what in the world? He said, your sister wants this to be put up for sale. Not true. And it does only take one property owner, one-fourth in this situation, to put the home up for sale. So the sign went in the yard, and it was listed for $1.2 million. Fortunately, it was caught. Unfortunately, in this situation, what happens though is the buyer, the local buyer of that property, would be the one who would really lose. They would buy the property. This money would be sent to whomever, another country likely, and then the buyer is without their money and without their property. Hopefully in our local community, and I've encouraged realtors, I've spoken to the Realtors Association, I've encouraged them to be familiar with your judges, be familiar with your county elected officials, because in Dayton, a very similar situation happened, and the judge ruled for the buyer. So the person who was scammed lost her property, and there was nothing she could do about it. She was an elderly woman. She and her husband owned a big apartment complex. It was a brick apartment complex in downtown Dayton. Her husband had been ill, so she had been caring for him for 3 or 4 years, and the property just kind of fell in disrepair. Fair enough. And it was sold right out from underneath her without her realizing it. It was after her husband passed and her children were helping her get her affairs in order that they even realized that the property was in someone else's name. It had been sold 3 years prior, and it had all been done electronically, and it had all been done what the judge ruled as kosher. So by realtors and people, just community constituents, knowing their elected officials and being active in county government, it helps. You're looking so like, oh my gosh, does this really happen? It happens. Ask questions later. So we have property fraud alert in my office. It doesn't prevent anything. This can still happen. What it does though is alerts you quickly. It alerts our constituents quickly that something has been recorded in our office that has their name on it. Now you'll also get an alert if you have recorded something in my office, but you'll also get that someone else has fraudulently recorded something in our office. All 88 counties have it. Our offices, there are 28 counties in the state who have the same vendor as we do in Clinton County. So ours is called Property Fraud Alert. But every county in Ohio has it. Most counties in Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, West Virginia, our region, all counties have it. So alert your loved ones. Be aware yourself. It's very simple to go on websites, and it would be through the recorder's office. It's very simple to go online and take care of that. And you can grab some of these flyers if you want to talk to relatives later and loved ones and get that information out. A couple other ways that people are doing that, people will file a fraudulent quitclaim deed. And I say this as I pose this in the most frequent way that this happens as fraudulently criminals from other countries, criminals from our own country, but there can be family squabbles too. And we've had people try to come into our office. Here comes grandma in the wheelchair, and they're trying to have her sign this quitclaim deed, and we feel like that there might be some dementia, or there may be an issue that maybe she doesn't know exactly what's going on. So it can happen within families as well. So they'll just come and file a quitclaim deed in our office and turn it over to someone else. They look for rental properties. The bad guy looks for rental properties. That's what happened to Dayton in Montgomery County. They forge a deed, putting it into name of a fictitious, sometimes an LLC or a trust. And so there's no name needed for that. You could name a company anything you want, so it doesn't have to have a name associated with it. And so, a lot of times, the buyer doesn't even know they've just purchased a fraudulent property. Through probate court, if someone passes in an attempt to avoid probate court, the bad guy will submit a forged deed or affidavit signed by the deceased owner. And then, these things have to be notarized. Well, guess what? There is a recorder in Ohio, and I won't mention the county. It is not Clinton County, but there is a recorder in Clinton, or in the state. It's not me. There's a recorder in the state who believes that it's notaries who are the issue. Well, if you are a fraud, you're going to either fraudulently notarize something, or you're going to fraud. So he thinks we need to crack down on notary laws. And it's not the case. But anyway, we're working on it. So that is one thing that is going very, has been a really big issue in our office. It happened back in, I think it was February that happened to the Century Farm owner. And a lot of it, one of the ways that, and this is the way that 3 realtors realized that there was something wrong, and they're realtors who are here in the community, and they're aware of, they've lived here all their lives, so they know names. They were switching the first name and last name. So it was names like Connor Mitchell, we'll say. Well, it could also be Mitchell Connor. Or James Bart. It could also be Bart James. Those sorts of things. Names that could be switched. And that's how they caught it, because they said the name reversed. And they thought, that doesn't sound right. So thankfully it was caught. So, any questions about property fraud alert?
How long has it been going on?
So, it has been going on in bigger states and more populated states. Florida has been hit really hard. Michigan has been hit really hard because of snowbirds. So, there's a vacant property sitting in Michigan while someone's snowboarding Florida, and squatters move in and take over. And then they start filing the fraudulent deeds. And
what percentage of properties actually go through a title company where they have insurance on them?
So title companies are pushing insurance quite a bit right now. I can't give you a percentage. I don't know what that is, but it's a large percentage, I would say.
That would essentially prevent most of the fraud, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily.
Sure.
Because the deed doesn't look fraudulent. I mean, as a recorder's office, we have some requirements for every document that's recorded. There are some requirements as far as how it looks. We need like 3-inch margins, and those things don't seem very important, but they are. It has to be notarized. So we can't evaluate every signature that's on every deed that comes in. So if it's recordable, if it's an original, if it has the correct margins, if it's notarized, if it has the legal description on it, we're recording it. It's very rare that we see something that looks fishy. And I've been in office for 4 years, and I've seen like 2 fishy documents that we didn't record, and that we went back to the attorney and said, let's look at this.
Who checks the accuracy of the deed?
So when a deed comes into the courthouse or the campus now, it goes to tax map. The tax map office reviews the legal description. then the transfer of the property is actually made in the auditor's office.
Okay.
So they make the actual transfer, and a conveyance form has to go along with that, telling them why the transfer is being made.
In a former life, I had to proofread legal descriptions.
Yes, me too.
I'm hoping AI will take care of that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. And then we get the document in the recorder's office, and like I said, there are just certain requirements that it meets for us to record it then. After that, yes.
I have two questions. First of all, doesn't there have to be some kind of a closing where people sit down and sign papers?
No, if there's but that's,
I've always been.
yes, thank you. Do those. But not everyone has to do that. If it's a quitclaim deed, if someone's just making a transfer to another family member or even a friend, it doesn't need to be, there doesn't need to be.
The thing is, the person who ends up with the money, can't they be traced and prosecuted? And what happens in that case?
Unfortunately,
I get $1 million from doing this.
Unfortunately, when it's all electronic, they get rid of their tracing. They get rid of that email address. They get rid of that phone number. They're switching phone numbers all the time. They're switching email addresses. They're making changes. They're smart. Unfortunately,
They still pay
they
the taxes?
know how to kill their.
They still pay the taxes then?
That's a good question.
So, you still have required paper.
We do not require paper. We take
It
electronic.
has to be formatted within 8
Yes.
by 11 or 8.5.
Yes. So everything has to. So we accept e-recordings, and probably about 58% of our documents right now. I haven't looked at it for May, but about 58% were electronic. Yeah. So as those come in, they still have to have those requirements. And the strange thing to me is it has to be an original. Well, I'm accepting it electronically. How do I know that is an original? So it's a bit of a gray area, and it's something we're working on. Actually, in my role on the legislative committee, we're really working on that because of the property fraud. But yes, we do accept electronic, and that's statewide, and that's actually a requirement. Now
So
that
what's
we
an
accept.
abstract?
Say that again.
An abstract? I hear about people getting abstracts.
Yes. So an abstract is when a title examiner, so when a closing happens, they've done a title search, and you pay for that when you buy a property. You've probably all heard, all the little add-on fees. That's one of them. So an abstractor comes into our office, or they can do that online now too, because our records are back to 1964. We're electronic back to 1964 in Clayton County. They can go online and they'll make sure that any mortgage that was ever on the property has been paid off and that there are no liens on the property. And they'll make sure that this chain of title has been kosher. Bill sold it to me, I sold it to Gary, and that all that is kosher with those transfers. So it's just an abstract back, and a property has to be searched back 44 years.
Ask you what?
44 years. It has to be abstracted back 44 years when a sale, a transfer happens.
Do most states not allow electronic copies?
Yes.
We had some property transferred to our son. We sold one, and paperwork back and forth for a month.
And was it mostly
In
electronic?
Florida. They had to have. This the property was originally in my name. I had to. Yeah, I even had a some documents in.
Right.
And that was in Pasco County, Florida.
Yeah. Any other questions about that? Yes. Lynn.
You mentioned that I hear this all the time about squatters moving in when a property's vacant for a while,
Yes.
like people that go to Florida. And my thinking every time I hear that is, wouldn't it be an easy way to stop that would be whenever we left for a long period of time, we had a neighbor who we trusted that had a key to the house, that kept an eye on the house. If they saw a stranger going in or going, they would immediately call us.
Yes.
Would that be a good way to stop that?
Absolutely. And that's building community is so important for all of our areas. But as you know, as you've probably seen out there, communities aren't what they used to be. People can stay to themselves. Little subdivisions, people are, this is where I live and this is my privacy and I don't want to talk to the neighbors. So there aren't those relationships where we're building rapport with those around us. So unfortunately, that's in a fantastic way to keep track of things and keep an eye on things, but it can go so unnoticed these days.
Seemed like that would be a good business for somebody to be in that
There you
position,
go.
that you call me if you're going to be gone, I'll check your property daily and,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. A little entrepreneur in you there. Yeah.
What would the process have been if that Century Farm did sell for the actual owners? How would they reclaim their property?
How would they have reclaimed the property? So hopefully, unlike what happened in Montgomery County, they could reclaim that property. It could go through a court case, though. They would have to, basically, it would be a case from the seller, the prior owner, the Century Farm owner, to the new buyer. And it would be a court case between them. And that is where the buyer is also very innocent. So it becomes an issue of the judge deciding between these maybe two very nice families who were frauded by someone who's no longer in the picture, has killed all trace of themselves, and the money's gone, and now we're fighting over who gets the property. So,
In Clinton County, but it did before Tim Ruddy,
yes,
and of course he's leaving office.
right. So yeah, it would be common pleas court.
So what would you recommend a buyer do before buying a property like that, I guess? So they know that it's...
So what I have encouraged the Realtors Association to do is to meet in person with any seller at least once. You have to have the seller in front of you at some point. I mean, that is, and as a buyer, I think we need to require that of our realtors. I think we need to be saying to them, what were your steps in listing this property? Have you met with the person in person, face to face? And aside from that, I don't know.
Would paper transactions help? I mean, instead of electronic?
They would, absolutely. And again, that just requires that realtor to have that seller in front of them.
How does the realtor know that's the real seller?
Good point. Yeah. Hopefully, it's not people in our country as
What do
much.
you do? They have to present a driver's license or a passport or something?
Yeah. And that's where property fraud alert comes in. So some of these cases, like the case in Montgomery County, that went on for years. She had lost her property years ago. She just didn't know it. It had been about 3 years. With property fraud alert, it alerts you within 24 hours. So if it's been gone for 3 years, you're getting an attorney. You have to get an attorney to take care of that because it's so far gone. If you learn within 24 hours, come to my office. There are things that you can do that we can hold the press, because it typically, after a closing, it takes about 30 days for all the paperwork to be recorded. So it's been sitting there for maybe 30 days by the time we hear about it. And the closing has happened. Yeah.
That's how much
Yes,
fraud
yeah.
and everything.
So is the property fraud alert system, do you have to sign up for that, or is that automatic?
No, you have to sign up for it, and you can be alerted either by cell phone, voice through your cell phone or text, or email. So those are the ways that you can be alerted, and there's a pretty clear button on our website, the Clinton County. It's easiest just to Google Clinton County, Ohio Recorder. Our email address is ridiculous. Our web address is ridiculous. And be sure you hit Ohio because there are Clayton counties all over the country.
Good.
Follow up. Wouldn't it be a good idea maybe just to make it automatic, or does that infringe on somebody's rights? Or
So some people do like that privacy and don't, although the property fraud alert we sell to no one, that is actually through our software vendor. We offer it for free. So we're not selling this list. It's like it is so locked down. It's not going anywhere, but I think some people are just apprehensive, I'm encouraging it hands down across the board. There's there's nothing negative about it. There are only positives with getting yourself protected.
Does the public know about this?
So I've had it in the paper twice. I put it out there. I've been speaking to groups. I'm getting the word out there as best I can. The commissioners have been supportive. We've got kind of there's a board out at the new campus, and it's flashing the warning. Doing what we can.
And it's, of course, another source coming up. It's supposed to be the radio station is supposed to be here in town pretty soon, going into effect.
Yes.
And there'll be public service announcements on things like that about getting these folders and so forth for property owners.
That is a good point,
Yeah.
Glenn.
And then also, before I forget, I want to tell you, I'm an independent living over here, and hardly a day goes by that they don't mention, wish Jordan was back.
Oh.
And she was the sweetest, nicest person. She just got along with everybody. She made everybody feel good. She had a pleasant personality. Just made you feel great. She took good care of everybody. And nobody could get her upset how they gripe about the food or whatever. She's just fantastic. You tell her we miss her.
I will pass that along to her. She misses you guys too.
Yeah.
And I have to share a story about her. And then I'll go on to a more exciting topic. Oh, actually a more uplifting topic. So she had her wisdom teeth cut out. This was when she first started here. So she started here when she was a junior in high school. And let me tell you, she started here kicking and screaming. It was her first job. I think she was actually a sophomore. It was her first job. And I was substitute teaching. That was my gig for 5 years. Actually, I had a 5-year license, and then the pandemic hit, so I let it go. So, anyway, she had her wisdom teeth cut out, and on the way home, I was trying to get her to say something funny because that's just what we parents do, I guess. I don't know, but she was still under the effects of the medicine, of course, and what she was rattling off was what everyone at Cape May drank. She knew every drink, and it was accurate. We went back and listened to it when she was coherent, and she had it accurate, had said it all accurately. She was mumbling it and saying they want cranberry juice and they want tea, and it has to be sweet tea. And she had it all. It was pretty funny. So she cared when she still cared. But all right, so I'm going to move on from property fraud alert. You can ask more questions about that in a bit if you have them. But the fun projects I get to work on too. So the first 3 years in office, I was pretty much just like I knew the work and I knew what I needed to do. What I didn't know about the job was the politics. I am not, and as Glenn shared, that's kind of my thing. I say that my work as president and treasurer of the parent-teacher organization for the schools, that's what prepped me for the political arena. But so the first 3 years, I just kind of have been trying to get a grasp of that. I am not a politician, thankfully, whichever way you look at that, but I say thankfully. So I had to learn and that was not easy for me. I lay low on that sort of thing. I grew up in a home where we didn't talk about religion, politics, or finances, and that was just how I was raised. That was our family's choices, and that's how it was. So I have moved on from learning the politics. I feel like I'm in a good place with that, and So now I get to work on some fun projects. I am unopposed in the next election, so I would be in this office for 4 more years at least, and feel very fortunate and blessed to not be opposed this time after a very, very competitive primary back during the pandemic. So, Century Farm project is what I'm working on. We have, Clinton County has 17 century farms, which is 100 years or more, 7 sesquicentennial farms, which is 150 to 199 years, and 3 bicentennial farms. So those farms, we are actually in the top third of people who report their century farms, the top third in the state. So it's a pretty good program. It's through the Ohio Department of Agriculture is how you sign up to be a century farm. So I'm doing a photo project in the office. I'm doing all of the photos of these farms. Some people are sending me pictures from drones. I have several really great photographs. I have some that are very vintage photos. This one is actually one of my favorites that I've received. This is the Stratford Farm, and you guys can pass that around. Sure. And actually behind it is the aerial, I think it's an aerial, of their farm. So just some really neat, it's really giving the folks who own these century farms a big boost, and they're pleased that we are honoring them in this way. So if you know of anyone who owns a farm and has been in their family for over 100 years, please send them my way and we will begin the paperwork. It's a little rigorous, but it's very simple to do in our office. The abstract that we were talking about to go back 44 years, you just have to go back 100 years. Or if they think it's been in their family for 200 years, we have to look at the records back 200 years and make all those connections and ensure that it is still in a family. We have one farm that I'm adding to the list, and it was in the same family for 118 years, and recently the brothers just decided we got to sell it. So I am still including them in the picture project and the photo project. So we have an added one. But yes.
How far back do your records actually go?
Our records go back to 1810. 1810 when the county was started.
Including marriage licenses?
So marriage licenses are kept at Records and Archives at the health department.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of them are in probate. There's a fine line there. Actually, most of them are in probate, and then the really old ones are at Records and Archives. Birth certificates, that's all health department.
Property records.
Property. Yep. We are property and DD 214s, military discharge papers. Yep. Those are recorded in my office. And those are restricted. They are not public record. That's the only thing in my office that's not public record, or the military records.
Why are they restricted?
Because they have a lot of information. They have like socials and that sort of thing. And rather than redact them, we just keep them restricted.
What were those numbers again? How many century farms?
We have 17 century,
Okay.
and then 7 sesquicentennial.
And what is it they're doing paperwork, what, to be certified as a?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does that give them?
A cool sign in their yard and the bragging rights that it's been in my family for more than 100 years.
It doesn't save them taxes or anything.
No. Which is not my department, by the way. Nor was it my department that assessed property values. But, I did not do that. But I've gotten enough calls. Why did you do that? It's funny what people think I did and what I do. So. Actually, when I was running for a recorder, my youngest daughter was in 4th grade at the time, and she thought I was going to play a recorder for people as entertainment when people came into the courthouse. There are days I think that might be better choice. No, I absolutely love my job. I have loved everything about what I do. With my background as a paralegal, I was in recorders' offices across the state. Often I did probate work. So when people passed and their property was being sold, I would do that abstract work of going in and tracing it back. So I love what I'm doing. I inherited an amazing staff. I have Barb Schutz, Leslie Wyatt, and I recently hired a part-time individual, Linda Glazewski, who was a former school teacher for years. So I have a great staff, and we all take care of each other. So, did you have a question? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions about the Century Farm? All right. Any other questions? Fun things you want to talk about?
Tanya, you said you're not a politician, but you did have to run in the party from a soft pick.
Yes.
And you're running against two men. You're a female. Did that help?
I don't know. I will have to say what I think helped me was my connection to the schools.
What do you want?
My connection to the
Right.
schools. With the children in school, neither of my opponents have children in the schools or have children. And I think that is what put me a little bit ahead. I'm sure none of you remember as much as I do, but the results of that primary, I was at 35%, then 33%, and 31%. It was a very close race.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was close, and I'm glad I'm not.
I would say that
And the
some of the
thing-
women in the country that in the world that have been leaders, in my view, have been better than the men.
Well, thank you.
Germany and New Zealand.
There were some who thought that it was a woman's job. Our most recent recorders in Clinton County have been women, but I don't buy into that necessarily. I will say that one of the things that made me the most timid. So I went around to all the townships and all the villages within the county, and I would sit outside. Gary, I can't remember if you were ever there, happened to be there at any of those meetings that I went to, but I would sit in the parking lot.
Yeah, maybe at a village council meeting.
Yeah, I would sit in the parking lot and just take 100 deep breaths and tell myself I couldn't do this. And then I would go in and meet the most dear people I had ever met. And then I would do the same thing again, and I would meet the most dear people again. So why I did that to myself, I don't know. But that was another little bit of a tale. So people approached me about running. It was not something that was on my radar at all. They had approached me in the summer, and I said no. I had a sister battling breast cancer at the time. And so in October, you file you can pull a petition, and I think it was July when you can pull a petition. Well, my opponents both pulled a petition, and folks had been coming to me. You need to run for this. And, she's resigned. My predecessor was retiring / resigning, and you need to do this. And I said, I can't do that. And then I thought, maybe I could. But I was very involved in the care for my sister. And then in October of 2019, my sister passed. And it was a horrible grieving time for me. So the Saturday after Thanksgiving, a friend of mine came to me and said, you need to do this. You need to grieve for another week, and then you need to do this. So I did, and I committed. And then I told my daughter, Jordan, I said, I just had a day when I thought, I can't do this. There's no way. I cannot do this work. Not the work of campaigning. And she said, I thought you taught us in our house that we never give up. Did I really teach you that? So I was like, okay, we're doing it then. So yeah, it was, yeah. So we did it, and my kids were super supportive. So it's been great. I feel so blessed and so thankful that I went for it. So it's all good. Yes.
The office of the recorder sounds very clerical. What made you so passionate about actually doing that and putting up the fight to run and stuff?
So service. I have a big desire to serve, and that has never left. I have been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and was needing to get back into the workforce. So combining the service and a job together, it just seemed like a really good fit. I had the background experience. I always loved my work in recorder's office when I got to do that work through my paralegal work. So just the qualifications that I had, and it does seem clerical, but there's a lot of history to it. Which I enjoy, and there's a lot of dealing with the public, which is my big love. I just love to be with people, but I'm a little bit of an introvert, believe it or not. But so I love it when people come to me and like I can help them in that way. I'm not always good about going to someone who I don't know and helping. So that was a deal for me too.
Because I saw you publicized you coming, I decided to see what the recorder is supposed to do on
Yes.
the website. I'm just wondering what this sentence means.
I hope I know.
Maintain permanent land record, retains them in archival form, and this is the part I wonder. Makes them constantly accessible to the public? What is constantly accessible?
So that is part, good question. So that is part of our records being back to 1964. Those are available online 24/7.
They are.
Yes. Everything in my office is public record except for the military records.
And so you get to that through the link in your
Yes.
Word.
There's a property search page on my website. So the auditor site, you can do it on the auditor site too. So through my office, we search by name. You would have to search by name in my office. So you would need to know the property owner's name.
So if there's a trust or something, you really get messed up.
Yes. Yeah. You can also search by subdivision, like Denver Edition or, but you have to kind of know.
Because in retirement, all we have to do is sit there.
Yeah, it's fun. You can go down a rabbit hole real quick. And then the auditor's office is where you can learn something by address.
By tab.
Yes. So you can put in the property address on the auditor's site, learn who owns it, and then you can come to my office and look up all kinds of information.
Right, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that means. So that's.
Yes, constantly available. And then anything prior to 1964 is available 8 to 4. That can't constantly be available. Unless I.
What is your link? What is your web link?
What's the website? Oh, goodness.
Right here, Bill.
Can you send that link to him? It's weird. It's like Clinton County, Ohio, and then there's /department. But just Google Clinton County, Ohio recorder, and it pops up.
It's
Oh, yeah, that is.
co.clinton.oh.us.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's like a /
It's just
department.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it is odd. It's long. Yes.
Besides Glenn Orr showing up at your place of business and having to pull a piece of paper out of his building to tell you who he was and where he lived and what his phone number was, what's the funniest things that ever happened to you at your office? Or did you see?
Oh, golly. Let me think about this. So one thing that happens a lot, it's not the funniest. So customer service is huge to me. So it took a little bit of training. When I came on board, my staff had been there for years, and except for the new part-time employee I hired. But you tend to, when you hear a question time and time again, you tend to think, okay, you know the answer to this when you're talking to the constituent. But what I had to train them was, this is the first time that person is asking the question. You've heard it 100 times, but this is the first time that person. So it took me a little bit, like it was kind of a couple weeks in, and I heard this tone, and I was like, stop talking to people like that. So the thing that happens the most that we get is people coming in after having paid off a mortgage, and they want a copy of their deed. Property is not like buying a car. That is the case. That's the process when you're buying a car. You get your deed when you purchase that property, whether you're getting a mortgage on it or not. That property is yours right away. You happen to get a loan for it. I understand that's different than a car, and it seems like the same process, but that is the question we get the most.
Well, mortgages are recorded too, right? You record the mortgage?
Yes.
All right.
Mortgages and then the releases. So we kindly give them their deed now and explain to them that they may also want a copy of their release. The release of their mortgage is what really shows that they now own that property outright.
Do you have any falsifications on that?
We have not seen any of those, but there are. So that's another one of the ways that property fraud has started in some states. These criminals will look for properties that are almost paid off. They'll look for mortgage, they'll go to my site because you can see what everybody owes on their property. Well, you can see the loan that they took out, and then with some simple math, you took out this loan 29 years ago, it's a $30-year mortgage, it's almost paid off. So the fraud will pay that off. They'll go to the bank, or again, wire money to the bank, pay it off, and then it becomes free and clear, and they suddenly use all that equity and
Well, does Clinton County have a recording fee? I know in Florida we had, I don't know, if you sold a $100,000 house, you paid $400 for taxes.
So that's a conveyance fee for the auditor's office. The auditor's office pays to transfer that. It's 3.5 cents per thousand.
Okay.
So that's how much you pay on that. Yeah. In our office, there's just a flat fee. It's like $34 for the first 2 pages, and then $8 for each additional page. But that's a standard across the state.
Yeah. I had 3 so.
Just a comment.
Yes.
Do you guys like to read the transfer of properties in the newspaper?
Yes.
But now with all the names of the land companies, they mean nothing,
I know.
That's
It's like
crazy.
you're not getting all the tea. You just get a little bit. You can't really tell who it is.
Are you the one that puts those in there?
No, the auditor's office
The auditor.
does that. Yeah.
Okay. And my second, I was wondering how many deep breaths you took out in the parking lot before you came in to talk to us.
I did not take any. I just walked right in here. It was so nice. That's kind of how it is now. I can do it now. I've come a long way.
Well, thank you, Donna.
Of course.